Now if I were to say the names Golden Axe, Double Dragon, Street Fighter 2, Streets of Rage, R-Type, Pac-Man, Pong, and you kind of know what I'm talking about here, chances are that you might be a bit of a retro gaming fan like me. Now if you grew up in either the 80s or the 90s, maybe with computer game systems like the Atari, the Commodore 64, the Sinclair Spectrum, the Amstrad, the Commodore Amiga, you might remember a time when game controllers were a little bit more simple than this. Now of course the Xbox 360 controller comes with loads of buttons on it, but there was a time when they were a little bit more simpler, and the main form of controlling video games would be a joystick. Similar to this one, it was the Competition Pro. Originally came out back in 1985 and was a very common budget joystick for systems like the Commodore 64 and the Amiga. Well, the good thing is it's now been re-released again for fans of retro gaming. And the good thing is you don't even have to own an old system if maybe you haven't got the room on your desk for like an old Commodore 64, or you don't want like a million computers and consoles cluttering up your house. Then this will be an ideal solution for you. It's a 4-button joystick built pretty much identically to the original Competition Pro. Good solid build quality, the plastic feels really good in it as well. The only difference is that we've now got an addition of an extra 2 buttons at the top there that weren't on the original Competition Pro. And also, it means this is now a 4-button joystick as well. Now the original Competition Pro did have 2 buttons at the top there, but they were both recognised as the same thing. It was really just depending on whether you were left or right-handed. But with this you can actually configure all 4 buttons to be recognised separately, so it's good, you know, if you want to have a game where you control different features of different buttons of the joystick. And also, the key thing to this re-release version of the Competition Pro is that rather than having the old Atari 9-pin adapter on the end that the old Commodore 64 and the Amiga and the Spectrum did use before, they've re-released it using a standard USB plug on the end of it, which is great news if you're a fan of retro gaming and maybe use packages like UAE to emulate the Amiga 500, or a Vice that emulates the Commodore 64. Packages like that you can play at the moment, but maybe you're stuck using the keyboard, which doesn't really give it that authentic feel really. This is an ideal solution for that. You can plug it straight into your PC with Windows inbuilt game drivers. It will be automatically recognised. No need to install CDs or hunt around for drivers or anything. And the good thing is most of the modern versions of the emulation packages will actually recognise this straight away, and you can just basically plug and play your old video games with it. Now, I'm going to do a bit of a review on this because this was a joystick that I did own in around 1988 or 89. I've ordered 2 of these from Amazon for £9.99 each, as I've got a few friends coming around tomorrow night, and my Xbox 360 is actually broken again, 3rd time since September. So I'm going to have a bit of a retro gaming fest, so I figured that I'd buy a couple of these in, get a few of the boys around, have a few old video games, and I'm going to fire up UAE now. We'll see how this compares to my memories of the original Competition Pro. I've fired up a emulation package called WinUAE that can emulate the old Amiga 68K hardware. So if I set this up quickly, it will load in the original ROM chip. And that should all work. Now I will connect one of the joysticks to the USB port on the computer. Now Windows has recognised it. I guess the software for it will, the driver will automatically be installed. So we'll fire up the input section on here, and we do see the USB device game 451 it's identified as, which I'm guessing will be the joystick. Now if I fire up the emulation package, we can insert a virtual disk. Now I've got a lot of old Amiga games on here. We can even turn on the sound as well to emulate the old Amiga disk drive if you're a fan of the old crunching that went on. Let's pick a game, that one will do. Okay. While I'm there, I will change it to full screen as well. A dodgy copy. Now a game that will be very familiar to anyone that grew up in the late 80s, Golden Axe, a massive arcade game back in the day. Now I'll press fire on here and hopefully you should recognise it. There we go. Always my favourite character. I'm kind of focusing on the camera and the joystick in the game as well, so do excuse my gameplay in this. If it's a little bit lame, then obviously it doesn't represent my ability. Okay. I'll try and get the joystick in shot as well. Always hated that bit. I've got to say, so far, performing very similar to how I remembered it. Swipe, jump with that. Now it's only recognising one button in this game because it was only designed for one button joysticks. Double tap was run. Oh. I'm sure I was a lot better 20 years ago. But I've got to say, it's kind of resembles how I remember this joystick feeling. Really good, solid micro switch in there as well. And performs really well with a game like this. No lag or anything. I had read a few reviews of this joystick where people were saying that sometimes it wouldn't respond as quickly as they remembered it, but I've got to say, it feels very similar to me. It seems to be recognising all my presses as well. I just kind of suck at this game, it seems. I'd say as well for the price, compared to using the keys for these games, which never really felt right to me, especially if you absolutely owned. If you did grow up on these systems and you weren't originally a PC gamer, you always used joysticks growing up, then I'd say, you know, for the sake of what, $9.99 it cost me, it makes emulation a lot more closer to the original experience that you probably had with these systems. So if you're a retro gaming fan, you grew up on the Commodore or the Amiga or the Spectrum, I'd highly recommend this. $9.99, you can order it from Amazon.com. It's the Competition Pro USB Joystick.